Hello everyone. Welcome to our third Security September webinar series after this last webinar series on Tuesday at 11 a.m. EST next Tuesday. We are planning to have 60-minute sessions, and we have a busy schedule. That's why I will answer your questions at questions part. First of all, I want to introduce myself. My name is Zeynep. I'm working as a senior product manager for Comodo security products over 1.5 year. You can directly contact with me for your any questions, problems from my personal Skype and email addresses. First week, we started with overall CCS and cybersecurity integration, file rating by priority, protection layers, and as a warm-up. Second week, we talked about file rating integration with Microsoft, Comodo, File Lookup Server, and Valkyrie. This week we will be talking about advanced endpoint protection layers and configuration for secure profiles. We will create profiles with using protection layers like real-time scanner, containment, HIPS, and virus scope. And the secure profile configurations will be long and includes more technical details this week. The last week will be about additional features for control network traffic and block certain URLs and block certain devices, prevent data loss. I show creating new profile to be able to secure a profile in these screenshots. But let's create a new profile from our endpoint manager. I will come to configurations, templates, and profiles, and I will create a template for a Windows profile. You should type a name and description for your profile, then click create. Let me. I created a new profile, and in the new profile, the general tabs only is active. You can click add profile section tab for other sections. Each section you will add will appear as a new tab inside your profile's detail. After you created your profile, you can apply it to devices, users, and device groups, user groups. You can make any profile a default profile by selecting make default button. Also inside general settings, you can select is default option to be able to default your profile, and that is applied automatically to any device which matches its operating system. You can have multiple default profiles per operating systems. The next step is add profile sections for a profile. Let me come here. Each profile section contains a range of settings for a specific security or management feature. For example, there are profile sections for antivirus, external device control, firewall, procedures, and so on. You can add as many different sections as you want when building your profile. Some sections are required that target endpoints are restarted. So you should confirm the alert message about the restart option. To get started, I will start with antivirus. This is the alert message I told before. This is that this option will require system restart after configuring these options for the endpoints. You can use the default settings for an antivirus profile or import them from a predefined profile. The default settings differ slightly from those in the various profiles. For example, show antivirus alerts is disabled in the security level 1 profile, but it is enabled in default settings. In either case, you can always modify the antivirus settings later as required. After you make the selection, then click OK, and the antivirus settings screen will open. Real-time scan configure the always-on virus monitor. This is the core antivirus scanner that continuously protects your endpoints against the malware. The scan stop, create a custom scan profile. Custom scan profiles let you choose which areas you want to scan. You can also create a custom scan schedule. You can add multiple scans to profiles to a device profile. And exclusions, files and folders that be skipped on devices to which profile is applied. Items you add here are excluded from real-time scans and any custom scans. Let me quickly explain the settings for real-time scan here. Enable real-time scan. The real-time scanner ensures your devices are constantly protected from malware, as I said before. The scanner inspects files whenever they are created, opened, or copied. Choose whether of not to enable real-time scanner. This is enabled by default. Enable scanning optimizations, various techniques to improve antivirus scan performance and reduce system as resource use. Do not show auto scan alerts. Choose whether or not to show a notification to end users when an external device is connected to the endpoint. CCS can automatically scan external devices whenever they are connected. Example devices are here, like USB sticks, CDs, DVDs, and external HDDs. Run cache builder when computer is idle. The antivirus cache builder runs whenever the computer is idle to boost the speed of real-time scans. This applies to CCS version 8.3 and lower. Scan computer memory after the computer starts. This is the if enabled scan computer memory, CCS will scan system memory for threats after a reboot. Show antivirus alerts. This is the configuration, whether or not show alerts on the endpoint when a malware is discovered. Disabling will minimize disturbance to the end user, but some loss of user awareness. If choose this, this is enabled with quarantine threats. If we not choose that, we can have quarantine threats and block threats. Block will prevent the file from running. Quarantine will most detected to the quarantine for assessment as the other processes. Decompresses scan and archive files of extensions. We can open an extensions example, for example. The antivirus will open and scan archive files such as jar, rar, zip, etc. If enabled, you can choose which types of archives should be decompressed and scanned. You can add new extensions from here, or you can remove directly from here your extensions. Set new on-screen alert timeout. This is basically specify how long an alert should stay on the screen. Set maximum file size to specify the maximum file size that the antivirus should attempt to scan. The same is maximum script size. It specifies the maximum size of a script. These values have default values, as you can see, 120 seconds, 40, and 4 is our default settings. By clicking these options, you can change these options as required. Use heuristic scanning. This is important for our antivirus section. Enable or disable heuristic scanning and define the scan level determines how likely the scanner is to classify an unknown file as a threat. The lowest sensitivity to detecting unknown threats generates fewest false positives. But the low setting combines an extremely high level of security and protection with a low rate of false positives. So Comodo recommends these settings for the most users. Low is our recommended option for heuristic scanning. Medium detects unknown threats with greater sensitivity than a low settings, but with a corresponding rise in the possibility of false positives. The highest sensitivity to detecting unknown and the same with the false positive option. As a background note, heuristic techniques identify previously unknown Trojans and viruses. Heuristics describes the method of analyzing a file to ascertain whether it contains code typical of a virus. It is about detecting attributes which resembles a virus rather than looking for a signature that matches a signature on the virus backlists. This allows the engine to predict an existing of new viruses, even if they are not in the current virus databases. The custom scans. The scans pane allows you to view, edit, create, and run a custom scans. Each scan profile is a collection of scanner settings that tells the CCS where to scan, when to scan, and how to scan. You can add multiple scan profiles to a device profile. Endpoint Manager ships with 4 scan profiles. Full scan is CCS scans every drive, folder, and file on the target device. External devices like USB drives and digital camera will be also scanned inside a full scan. A quick scan, CCS scans important areas which are most prone to attack from malware. Scanned areas include system memory, autorun entries, hidden services, boot sectors, and the other significant areas. Unrecognized file scan, CCS only scan the files which have an unknown trust rating. CCS will obtain the file's latest trust rating from our master online database. Quarantine file scan, CCS only scans files which are currently quarantined, and CCS will obtain the file's latest trust rating from our same master online database. Click edit button if you want to edit the details on a scan or set a schedule for these predefined scans. Or you can create a custom scan profile. You can enter a name and after adding a name, you can add a file for scanning. Let me write. And you can select, remove, or add folder, add regions, etc. You can select an options from here, as you can enable scanning optimizations, automatically scan threads, or the same options from our real-time scan screen. You can change it from basically to your custom scans. Also, you can schedule a scan. In here, you can have a frequency, or you can run only when computer is not running on battery, and you can select these options. You can change every day, every hour. Your selected frequency will be changed. Selected days of month, you can select the Sunday the 2nd, and you can select every month at second day, etc. You can schedule whenever you want. And I added my webinar in here. Basically, I can select and remove my custom scans also from the list. Exclusions. The exclusion screen under the antivirus setting has 3 sections that allows you to add list of paths, list of applications, files, and file groups, which you should be excluded from the antivirus scan. By clicking the add button, you can add a path from here, and the added excluded paths will be added to the list. I will add an example here. It's too big for an adding, then I will remove it. And this is the same for the applications and excluded groups. For the same approach with paths, you can add executables, all applications, or containment folders. You can exclude the containment folders from scanning because you already contain this application, as an example. Let's save our antivirus section. We talked detailedly about malicious files and their container process, and now we will get deep into the containment technologies with our containment profile section. Let me first shortly explain the containment process again. CCS can run all unknown files in a security hardened environment known as the container, as we always talk about container. Files in the container are prevented from causing damage because they are isolated from the OS, file system, and user data. The containment settings are the area lets you configure the container and the virtual desktop, which we are talking too much. You can create rules and define what types of files should be contained and at what restriction levels. The restriction levels are include that run virtually, run restricted, block, ignore. We will show deeply. Also, you can block contained applications from accessing specific files, folders, and registry keys. The virtual desktop is a separate sandbox environment, which you can run Windows programs and internet browsers. Programs in the virtual desktop are isolated from the rest of the host, so preventing them from the potentially causing damage. Modifications to the containment settings are automatically logged, by the way. You can view them inside dashboard and audit logs inside here. Let's configure the container. You can use the default settings again or import them from a predefined profile. The default settings differ again from the imported predefined profiles. For example, auto-containment is enabled for security level 1 profile and disabled at the default settings. Also, you can change it in any case as required. I will open a containment section to my profile section. And let's get deep into the settings under containment. Enable auto containment is which we said before. Activate or deactivate auto containment on the endpoint. CCS will automatically run unknown applications inside container if you enable this option. In the default, it is disabled, so you should enable this option to be able to use auto containment functionality inside your endpoints. You can also create rules to fine-tune exactly which types of files are contained, but it is in the rules section. Enable file source tracking. If it is enabled, CCS will consider the origin of the file when deciding whether to contain it or not. For example, if you only want to auto-contain files downloaded from the internet, so the internet will be your source for our tracking system. If this setting is disabled, then the source is disregarded. Only reputation and location of the file itself are considered. So it's also up to 8 and 8.3 CCS versions. Do not virtualize access to specified files folders, and also the same for registry keys, removable media, and the com applications to be able to specify the exclusions for the paths, the exclusion groups you wanted to remove inside a containment technology. You can specify adding a path, adding a file group from here, and these exclusions will not be included our containment technology. They will be disregarded from the virtual desktop and from the container. Enable automatic startup for services installed in containment. By default, the CCS does not permit contained services to run at Windows startup. So select this checkbox to allow them to do so on targets and endpoints. Show highlight frame for contained programs. Sorry. Let's open again. In the configuration templates profile, I created this, and yes. Show highlighted frame for contained programs is that a green border around programs running in container. I want to show you an example I opened before. This is our remote control application. The green circle in this application means that this application is running inside our container. Also, by clicking any application, you can run them inside the container if you don't want to take risk of Trojans or viruses or affecting a malware in your computer. And the detect programs which require elevated privileges. CCS proactively tracks programs that require admin privileges to run. A program that isolated to run with elevated privileges is permitted to make changes to important areas of the endpoint, such as the registry. Do not show privileges elevation alerts. If detect is enabled, then an alert is shown to the end user when a new or unrecognized program requires admin or elevated privileges to run. So do not show internal containment services among the contained applications. Any processes start by CCC or CCS will not be shown in the active process list in CCS. Do not report endpoint manager about internal containment services. This is, as the name is explained, you can not see inside endpoint manager console to be aware about these applications. Also for the security dashboard settings for containment, you can see under security subsystems and containment, you can see, let me save this settings and go to security subsystem and containment. You can find the contained example. Yes, you can see the containment logs inside security subsystems and containment here. And let me go back to my containment and let's see the rules. Containment rules determine whether a program should run as normal, run with restrictions, or run in the virtual environment. So CCS consoles three rules every time a program is opened on the endpoint. A contained application has much less opportunity to damage the endpoint because it is isolated from the operating system, system files, and your personal data. CCS shows a green border, as I showed you before, if you contained an applications already. If you want to create rules, you can click Add Rule button and basically create a new rule. The action here has that run virtually, run restricted, block, or ignore options. And you can create criteria and options for your rules. The criteria defines conditions upon which the rules should be applied, and the options are basically configure additional actions like logging, memory allowance, and execution time restrictions, etc. You can select and run virtually, or you can edit a criteria from here if you want to set a criteria for your containment rule. For example, you can choose all applications or all executables from here as a target. This is our target. And as a filter, it only affects executables from internet. As an origin, you will set that all executables comes from internet will be contained as a rule. And you can set that okay, and this is as our criteria. We added this option. All executables comes from internet will be run virtually, and we can specify our options from here, and we can select when is action is performed, log, set restrictions, limits, and etc. Also, the all actions have different actions here. Run virtually and run restricted have the same options, but block is only have the quarantine program, and ignore will be do not apply the selected action to child processes. which means the child processes are those started by the target application. This option is disabled by default, so the ignore rule also applies to child processes. If you enable this option, each child processes will be inspected individually when and all relevant rules are applied. So this rule does not apply to child processes. By clicking OK, you will add this rule as in here as a rule set. And after we add a new rule, we can continue with the configure baseline settings. We have enable baseline and stop baseline and enable auto containment after countdown as an option in here. A baseline is a period of time that time during which unknown files discovered on your network are sent to Valkyrie. It's about the Valkyrie integration. Unknown files are not run in the container during the baseline period. This can be useful if you want to create a whitelist of existing file on your network. So stop baseline and enable auto containment after countdown. If it is enabled, baselining will last the length of time you set in those fields. Auto containment will resume when the period you entered expires. If it is disabled, the timer begins after you apply and configure the profile to your network. The virtual desktop settings. Virtual desktop is a sandbox environment in which users can run programs and browse the internet without fear. Those activities will damage their computer. Applications in a virtual desktop are isolated from other processes, right to a virtual file system, and cannot access user data. This makes it ideal for risk-free internet surfing, beta software, and general computer use. From the user's point of view, programs in the virtual desktop run exactly as they would under Windows. So virtual desktop settings lets you configure the behavior of the feature on the endpoints. Let's start with the options here. You can select the automatically reset virtual desktop session is when session is terminated. You can protect pause for the sessions with a pin. You can set duration of paused virtual desktops. It's default 60 minutes. You can reset password when existing virtual desktop is request password when existing virtual desktop is finished. And also you can add a show disclaimer. It will be shown before virtual desktop session is started. So you can basically add a disclaimer here, and it will be shown before the startup. Allow user to overwrite virtual desktop session. You can select and give the users to be able to overwrite these options. Under users, it is important part of the virtual desktop actually. Specify user groups for whom the virtual desktop should start automatically after they logged in. This means that the virtual desktop is the user's default environment instead of the host operating system. This settings is especially useful for guest users, for public computers in libraries or classrooms, etc. you can open their computers basically in virtual desktop environment. I can add users, guests, it basically, and continue with protected data and protected keys. The protected data lets you define files, folders, files in a file group that are to be defined access to the contained applications on the managed device. The items in the protected data cannot be seen, accessed, or modified by applications running in the container. So this fortifies files containing sensitive data from unrecognized and potentially malicious programs. So you can basically add file groups, for example, about Windows management. You can protect this file group in the damaged programs. You can by selecting from the file groups we predefined, or you can give a file path by your endpoints. And the protected files and protected data are different from each other. In items in heaps, like protected files, it will be protected files for the heaps, can be read by any program, but not modified by them. This contrasts to item in protected data in containment settings, which are totally hidden to contained programs. If you want a file or folder to be read by other programs, but protected from modification, then it's added to the protected files inside heaps. If you want totally concealed an item from contained programs, but allow read-write access to trusted programs, then you should add this file or folder to the protected data inside containment. You can add the same item to the both areas, by the way, in heaps and in containment. This means trusted programs have read-only access to the file, and contained programs have no access rights. Also, you can change this file groups in here inside the settings system templates under file group variables. This is the same for protected keys. You have a registry entry and registry groups for a selectable options. Registry entry is the individual case. You can add an individual case to be protected, or you can add a predefined groups of registry keys, so that all member keys in the group are blocked from contained applications. You can basically, we can save the options we finished our containment. Not want to, yes. The containment settings are successfully saved. Let's go and find the protected keys and protected data groups in here. Under settings system templates, you can see file groups variables in here. This is for the protected data section. You can change the file group variables in here, and also registry variables is for the protected keys. You can set your own registry groups from here. After configuring a detailed containment rules, we can continue with heap section. The host intervention prevention system constantly monitors the system activity. It allows processes to run if they comply with the security rules in the profile on the endpoint. For example, heaps protected system critical files and registry keys from unauthorized modification by a malware. So CCS ships that a default heaps rule set. that provides extremely high levels of protection out of the box. You can also create custom rule sets as required. We will show you in the demonstration. And you can configure from here, basically set your predefined profile, or you can use default settings. We have heap settings, heaps rules, and rules set and protected objects, as I talked about the containment. Enabling heaps is basically activate or deactivate the heaps protection on managed computers to which the profile is applied. Heaps security level is have the paranoid, safe mode, and training mode. I want to explain these three modes detailedly because this is important for a heaps rule creating system. Paranoid mode is the highest security level setting. That means heaps monitors and controls all executable files apart from those that you have deemed safe. The safe mode is while monitoring critical system activity, heaps automatically learns the activity of executables and applications certified as safe by CCS Comodo. It is also automatically creates allow rules for these activities. But this instructs the heaps not generate an alert next time it runs. So the endpoint is not new or known to be free of malware and other threats than safe mode. So settings for most users about combining the highest number for training any and all executables and create automatic allow rules until the security level is adjusted. So the in training mode. If you choose the training mode settings, we advise you to that all applications and executables installed on the endpoints are safe to run. Not if required, you can enable training mode by mode section. So you can select the days and hours, and after the time is countdown is over, CCS will switch back to the previous mode you selected from here. So it's important, if you want to use it, please use it in temporarily switch mode. Also, the monitoring settings is important for a heaps rule. The activities, entities, and objects that should be monitored by it and at the managed endpoint by clicking these monitoring settings. This is all options are default by enabled by default. And also we have the options in here. This is the do not show pop-ups, set pop-up alerts about the heaps rules inside the CCS. We can also basically create a new heaps rules in here while using a new group. You can select the use group by group name, or you can use a rule set from here, allow applications or Windows system application, or you can use a custom rule set. Well, you can use a rule set predefined from here, and you can customize them with your own actions and access rights and protection settings also. In here, you can set that it is activate or inactivate. You can customize each predefined rules from here. Rule sets, sorry. And for the rule sets, I showed you, you can add a rule set from here. This is the predefined rule set I showed in the heaps rules. You can add a new rule sets from here. You can add basically a name and access rights run an executable block, for example, in your rules, and you can set a protection settings for your HIPS rule. Protected objects are the protected files, registry keys, and COM interfaces. Allows you to view and specify protected from the changes. You can select protected objects from here by clicking paths or show registry keys and show COM interfaces by clicking these options. The last section I want to mention about in this webinar is virus scope. I will quickly explain the virus scope. Virus scope is a CCS feature which closely monitors the activities of running processes and generates alerts if they take threatening actions. The feature uses a system of recognizers to detect malicious behavior and thus identify brand new malware. So CCS scope alerts offers to choose to quarantine and process, undo its changes, or let the process go ahead. So you can choose whether virus scope should monitor all processes or only contain processes from here. After adding this section, you can enable virus scope. If enabled, virus scope monitors activities, all running processes, and generate alerts on the suspicious activities. Show pop-up alerts that if you disable alerts, then threats are automatically quarantined and their activities are reserved. Monitor contained applications only. As I said before, choose whether virus scope should track every process on the host or only processes which are running in the container. After saving the section, virus scope component will be added to our Windows profile. So we have a Windows profile that have antivirus, containment, and HIPS rules also with the virus scope sections. This is the all part of I want to show you for this webinar series. On the below part, I added the Comodo forum link in here for sharing your webinar request so we can add our weekly webinar topics and answer your questions about this webinar. Also, we will send the record after the session is finished. I will check the chat group if there is a questions. Are we able to generate a report showing profiles marked as default? Ulgaz is answered the question, so thank you Ulgaz and Frederick for your questions and answers, and thank you all for your time. See you on the next and last webinar series session.